Okay, so we're here at the base of the crag now, and we're about to get started on doing some crack climbing. But I want to go over a couple just fundamentals before we got started that I'll try to illustrate while I'm on the rock. The first one is just the sheer fundamental of all crack climbing holds is some sort of a wedge mechanism. So for your hands, what that involves in theory is going into the crack thin and then making your hand fatter than it was before it went in order so when you pull your hand back, in order to pull your body up, that gets stuck, that gets wedged, your hand gets wedged in the crack somehow. There's a couple techniques to do that. One is if you're going in flat like this, once you get your hand in, bring your thumb down like this to make that palm of your hand come out a little bit, and your hand just gets that much wider. For a fist jam, you can have your hand go in like this or like this and then make the fist, or if you went in as a fist, you can then turn your fist sideways, almost all the way to sideways, or you can again bring your thumb down a little bit in order to make your hand just wider. Other thing to think about when you're wedging your hand in a crack is trying to find in the crack where there's these kind of grooves, okay? So if you went in a wide part of the groove, pull your hand down inside the crack until you get to a thin part of the groove. And the groove can be very small, like you can't even see it with your eyes, but it's there. The cracks normally aren't exactly flat. There's just a little bit micro groove where, so if you get real tight with your hand and then pull back, you'll hit one of those grooves and it'll stick. Likewise for your feet, think about your foot going in, you can have your foot go in sideways and then turn your toe flat and your foot can get wedged in the crack. I don't want you to think too much about trying to get your foot jammed all the way in the crack. A lot of times just the edge of the crack provides enough friction for you to stand up. But on your hands, be thinking about that wedge mechanism. The second thing to think about when crack climbing is protecting your hands and making them sticky. So you can see I've got these black diamond crack gloves. I'm gonna put this other one on in just a second. These have a little bit of a rubber outer part that helps increase the coefficient of friction with my hand in the rock. And they also protect your hands. So the reason that you want to protect your hands, of course, number one is you don't want to hurt yourself. But number two, if you can torque more on the jam, you can get an even better hold. And if your hand doesn't hurt because it's protected by the glove, that will enable you to torque more without being scared of hurting yourself or flinching or something like that. So I like to wear these gloves mainly because I can torque harder and therefore pull my body up a little bit more securely than if I just have my bare hand in there. Even if I try to tell myself I'm not flinching or holding back on the torque because it hurts, I know that I am, because the padding on these gloves just distributes the pressure a little bit better. Of course, you can also tape your hands, but I like these gloves as a compromise of convenience, but also getting the benefits of covering your hands. The last thing is you're going to want to take off your watch or any kind of things around your wrist, because a lot of times you're trying to jam your hand into a crack even past your wrist, and you don't want your watch to get caught on something or scratched up or whatever. So I'm going to take this watch off before I get started and get in the crack. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and hit the wall and see some of these techniques in action. Okay, so we've come to a perfect example of the type of crack I was just talking about on the ground, where it's just the right width for a vertical hand jam like this or this. And you can see there's some kind of grooves like this that's perfect for me to go into a wide spot and then bring my hand down to a narrow spot and pull myself up. There's two ways to insert your hand on a vertical hand jam. One is with thumbs down, and what this is going to provide you is a little bit more security by when I put my hand in, thumbs down, I then torque my elbow down, and you can see how that makes my hand wider now. So I can really cinch almost my whole body onto that, that pivot arm and get my hand jammed really well in there and stand up and feel real secure. The downside of this is it's hard for me to like reach up and go down with a thumbs down hand jam. So that's one of the limitations. But the other way to insert your hand in a vertical crack is, or vertically, is with the thumbs up. And you don't get as good of torque, but I can get more mobility. So I can go higher than I normally would be able to with a thumbs down jam. So let's see through the GoPro perspective what it looks like when I put my hand into these hand jams and pull myself up. So you can see I can use my other hand on the face because this hand is in really good and able to support most of my body weight. Another type of crack you can run into is a crack kind of on a corner like we see right here. It's a little bit thinner, and you can't fully jam inside these cracks, but you can still use the crack to your advantage to get some good friction on with your fingers and pull yourself up. So the way I like to grab these kind of cracks right here is my fingers on one side of the crack and then my thumb on the corner that's extruding outside the crack, or the wall that's coming outside the crack. And you can use your fingers to push your thumb into that wall and push your thumb down and be able to get quite a bit of friction in order to pull yourself up. So let me show you what that looks like. So I'll take my fingers in, and you can see I can have my fingers pushing my thumb into the wall like that. I can come complement my thumb or my right hand with my left, just kind of stabilizing myself right here on the sloper, and step right up. The next type of crack I'll show you is probably one of my favorite, and this is the equivalent of a jug in techie face climbing. And it's when there's a big crack that comes down to a really narrow crevice, just like this one right here in front of me. And what you can do is you can either take your hand again in the vertical hand jam position, or even in a fist, just depending on the size of your hand, and almost dunk it up there and pull it through just like a nut. And you should be able to support your entire body weight on this type of hold. So I can't wait to get my hand in there. It feels so good to go in vertically, come down, and you can see I can rest my entire body on that and pull myself up to a stable position. Okay, so always be looking for those narrow gaps that come to a real wide gap that you can almost just put your hand right in, just like that. Another type of jam that you can do is a finger jam for really small cracks. Sometimes a crack just isn't big enough to get your hand in, and so just like this crack right here, it's big enough for me to fit maybe 2 fingers in. And so I'm going to go in just like my vertical hand jam. I'm going to go in with my fingers vertical like that, and then I'm going to try to torque down and make those fingers wider to give myself a lot of friction on the sides of the crack. So let's see what that looks like. So I'll go in vertically. You can see I got plenty of room. I can wiggle my finger, but then as I torque, now my fingers are in real tight, and they're almost like a hook. And I even have my thumb down below pushing against the crack wall in order to be able to have a little bit of extra stability. And I can pull myself up on that. A finger jam is not necessarily going to support your whole body weight, but don't get caught up with every single jam supporting your entire body weight. They're not all going to be jugs, but it is enough a lot of times to use the rest of your limbs to support the rest of your body weight and get through a crux section of the crack. Okay, the last jam that we'll talk about is the fist jam, and this is one of the most secure types of jamming because you can get your whole fist in where your hand is the wide part and your fist is the narrow part, and really get your weight spread out on the surface area of both sides of your hand. So it provides a little bit of relief compared to all your body weight on like a finger jam or something like that. And it also provides a security of like a big hold, just like putting in a big cam in trad climbing. So you can see right here, I got a nice fist jam coming up that I'll be able to get my full hand into and then pull my weight all the way up. So let's see what it looks like. So you can see I've got my entire, you see I got my entire surface area of the thumb side of my hand on this wall and most of the surface area of my pinky side on this wall. And there's even a little groove that's keeping my pinky inside the crack. So that's perfect. And I can pull my whole body up on that. So always kind of be looking for those fist jam opportunities to give your hands a break from the pressure and also have basically the equivalent of a jug in techie face climbing. Hey, I hope you got a lot out of those demonstrations on crack climbing. One thing I wasn't able to highlight on the wall is you don't have to focus on getting every single one of your limbs in the crack at the same time. I've noticed a lot of beginners that start crack climbing, they want to have all feet and hands in the crack. You actually probably only need 1 or 2 of your limbs at most in the crack at a time, maybe 3. But you can use the sides of the wall as holds as well. Even if there's not even great holds there, you can still smear with your feet or even provide some stability with your hands. Hey, but I hope you got a lot of value out of that video. I hope it gives you a little bit of confidence to go out and try crack climbing. Highly encourage it. It's a necessary style if you want to get on diverse rock, especially out west. And if you have any questions or comments about crack climbing, feel free to leave them below. And if you got a lot out of this content, please like and subscribe to our channel. Hey, I'll see you out the crack.